And you may think that it's not important right now, but when you do become young adults or even adults and you want to pursue particular careers, and then you hit this roadblock, then you'd regret what you did in your youth. So my objective, my mission really is to educate you all about the law, because if you are aware as to what the law is about, how you should engage with the police officers, you can prevent yourself becoming a statistic, okay? And not only for yourselves, but also for your parents. Because your parents, your guardians, your carers, they need to know that the age of criminal responsibility starts at 10. And not many young people or their parents are aware of this. And so you may be going to school, or you send your child off to school. And you know, some of you on the bus or at in the playground, and in the classroom, you tend to mess about a bit. But that messing about could result in someone getting injured, seriously injured, having to be taken to the hospital. And then when that happens, the teacher may decide, well, given the circumstances, they need to call the police. And at 10, you could be arrested, taken to the police station, and you would be taken through all the processes that any criminal older than yourself will have to experience. And then not only you, your parents have to get involved, because your parents now have to go down, leave their job if they're working, leave home if they're looking after a sibling, a younger sibling, to go to the station to deal with the circumstances that you were involved in. And that could be very stressful for them. And they may not know what to do in terms of engaging with the police, knowing what questions to ask, which police station you're taken to, having to engage a solicitor. They may not know these things, and they may be stressed out as well. So you see the drama that you're bringing onto the family if you don't control yourself. And you may think it's very simple and innocuous, it's harmless, but it has serious implications. And this is what you have to be aware of. You may say, it's not important. That doesn't concern you, but it does. And so you have to learn about the law. You have to learn about how to engage with the police, how to talk to them, because there's and I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying this so that you could be aware. Because as they say, being forewarned is being forearmed. Is that the correct thing? Yes, okay. And so you know what you have to do or what you should not do when you're going to school, when you're engaging with the police, if they do approach you. And there's a growing pattern based upon my engagement with young people. And the pattern is, it seems, and this may be inadvertent, but it seems that the police targets 13-year-olds, okay? They seem to start to engage with young people, young Black people, and white people and Asian people as well. But the experiences of the Black community is very stark. And the figures, I'm not just making this up, the figures state that the experiences of young Black people in the criminal justice system, they are terrible, and right across the system. And there's now a call from the Ministry of Justice, from politicians, from Lord Scarman to Lord Macpherson to MP Lammy to change the system, because it's not working. And it's not working for young Black people or BAME children. So this is really to educate you. the nature of the presentation is very sort of high level. And I think I have to, given the audience, I don't know if online there may be more older young people, you know, there will be, okay. So I think, okay, I'll calibrate the presentation, and I'd like you to ask me questions as I go along, because it's only by being engaged, and I'm prepared to engage you and answer all your questions, that you will learn. Sometimes most of us, we tend to just sit and listen. That helps as well. That is part of the educative process. But it's also better and effective if you engage with questions. And any question is important. So don't be afraid to ask questions, okay? Now, because we are in a church setting, I was instructed by my boss. I won't say who that is. But I was told that I should sort of link this presentation to the 10 Commandments, to the Bible, okay? And the 10 Commandments are really God's guide as to how we should organize societies, you know, and it talks about thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not lie. I'm paraphrasing. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's things, you know, and all of that. But the laws of countries, particularly the UK, the English common law, is based upon Christianity, based upon the Bible, the 10 Commandments. And also in other Western European countries or Western countries, they base their legal systems on the tenets of the Bible. So in that sense, you know, for yourselves, it's important that you bear in mind the 10 Commandments, what they stand for, and to ensure that, you know, if the law says you shouldn't do certain things, then you should not do those things. And importantly, it says ignorance of the law is no excuse. So you may not know the law, but your behavior may ensnare you into the criminal justice system, and the prosecution, the police would have to do their work, because their function is to protect the wider society from, you know, people offending, okay? So do you all agree that it's important to be aware of the 10 Commandments? And do you agree that you know, society is based upon the 10 Commandments as the foundation? Do you all agree? Okay, good. So the presentation is, you know, 25 minutes in, is the law and you. And it could be you individually, or it could be you as the whole society, the entire country, okay? Because society is based upon the interactions of individuals, citizens, and they have rights and responsibilities, and those rights and responsibilities are grounded in the law. You know, so knowing the law is important for those type of interactions. It's also important nationally and internationally as well, because countries, there are laws that regulate how countries engage with each other. There are laws of war, what's happening in Ukraine now. That's very topical. You know, countries by law, by international treaties are required to assist each other in terms of fighting international financial crime. For the past 20 years or so, or 23 years, I've been involved in monitoring how countries protect the global financial system from money laundering, drug trafficking, and the financing of terrorism. And those are based upon treaties and laws, because treaties, countries have treaties amongst themselves as to how they would help each other combat crime. But those treaties have to be enacted into the law of the individual countries. And so the law is important, okay? Importantly also, companies, they have to obey the law, even though they aren't natural citizens, they're legal citizens. And so the companies, how they operate, they need to adhere to the law. And they would have boards of directors, just as the church as an institution has to follow the law. the boards of directors of the companies and the board of directors of the church or churches, they will have to follow the law as well. If you don't follow the law, let's say as a church, then potentially the Charities Commission, because the churches are normally charities, they can come and inspect your books and look at the behavior and of the board of directors. And if they're found wanting, then certain steps could be taken based upon the law. Okay. So even organs of the church, like the SEC, and I don't know if you all know that, the South England Conference, the NEC, the North England Conference, the British Union, and the European Division, they all have to adhere to laws. If they don't, then there are consequences. So the law knew, this is a very complex area, and I'm going to specifically talk about the criminal justice aspects of the law, which is stop and search. And that's a vexing question, vexing issue for everyone, because the figures about stop and search in the criminal justice system, particularly for Black people, are horrendous. I mean, over a year, you could say more than 550,000 events of stop and search would occur involving Black people and the police. And guess what? Out of that 550,000 or more incidents, only 14% would result in criminal proceedings. So it tells me that, and not only myself, but it tells the wider society, it tells the watchdogs that are watching the police as to how they engage with the citizens. It says that the police aren't doing their job. And this is not only myself and the watchdogs, but also there's an institution that trains the police called the College of Policing. And they as well said that in certain aspects of the police's duties and responsibilities, they are not doing their job properly. So if you are educated about the law, then you, when you engage the police, could ensure that they adhere to their responsibilities and do their duties well, and in keeping with the law. Because if the police don't adhere to the law, then you as citizens have certain rights. You can take out, I know the Crown Prosecution Service, they deal with all the prosecutions in the country, but you as a citizen, you have the right to take out a private prosecution against the police if they were to commit an act of a crime against you. If you feel that you've been criminally acted upon, for want of a better term. Okay, and so you have that right. Now it may be that when the prosecution service sees the cases that you're bringing, they have the power to take over the case. But it doesn't deny you the right to pursue your rights against the police if you feel you've been aggrieved. And there's a law that says you can have some redress against the police because of the nature of the circumstances. Okay, so you can take the police to court for criminal action. You can also take the police to the Independent Office for Police Complaints. You can make a complaint against them to say that they stopped you and they searched you, it was improper, it was vulgar, it took away your dignity. And so you can make a complaint, and that office has to investigate the complaint and bring a result. And hopefully those results, if there are many complaints, would address your concerns. There's also the human rights law, because you may feel that your human rights have been infringed upon by the police. That's another avenue. If the police are acting unfairly against you, you can pursue justice in that regard, okay? But it's important that you know the law. And one of the powers of the police is to move you on. And I'll just talk about this broadly. Let's say a group of you are hanging out in the park, or in front of the church, or in the underground station, and you're making lots of noise. And you aren't doing anything particularly bad or criminal, but it's causing a bit of a disturbance to people around, and People may call the police and they may complain. The shopkeepers at the station may complain. The neighbors in front of the church may complain. And what they will do is the police will come to where you are. And the police may assess the situation, and then they'll say, okay, okay, this doesn't arise to the level of criminality or behavior, but what they'll tell you, just go on, just go home, you know, move you on. That's something that the police can do to you, okay? The other thing is that they can stop and ask you to account for your behavior, where you're going, you know. Yeah, you know, in certain instances, you don't have to answer them because there's no power in, you know, to ground those, to ask you to stop and account for your behavior. Pardon? Well, let's see, it's late at night or even during the day. And the police, you know, there's been some disturbance in the area, you know, and you're just walking home. The police can say, okay, although they don't suspect you of a crime, they may stop you and ask you, well, you know, where you're going to engage with you, you know. As I said before, they don't have the, you're free to leave. You don't have to answer their questions. But, you know, knowing that you have the power to do that is important. It empowers you in how you respond to the police in those circumstances. But it's also important how you interact with the police, how you exercise your power to say, no, I won't answer your questions. You know, you don't have the power to do this. I'm going home and that's it. So it's just how you conduct yourself. Yes, Sister Abigail. Yeah. Yeah. True, you don't have to, you know, and so it's, but it's how you do it, okay, so that you don't antagonize the situation, because then if you behave in a certain way, then they may become suspicious, and then that gives them potentially the possibility of engaging you further, because they're suspicious that they have a suspicion that you may be doing something wrong. So it's how you interact, how you respond to the police that's very important. So they may stop and question you, they may stop and search you. They must have reasonable grounds to search you, however. And they can stop you and because they have grounds for suspicion that you may be carrying drugs, you may have a weapon in your bag, you may have stolen property, or something that may be used to commit a crime. So if they do stop you, again, it's how you engage. They have to identify themselves, you know, they have to tell you why they're stopping you, the reasons, you know, if they feel that you've committed an offense, they have to tell you that as well, you know. So they have to give you lots of information. They have to identify themselves, you know, which station they're at, their badge number. These are all things that must happen when you engage with the police, okay? So you have a question? So the police can also stop and search you, okay? And they have to have a reasonable suspicion to search you. They have to identify themselves, which station they come from, their badge number. They have to give you a lot of information as to why they're stopping you, why they want to search you. And there are certain things protocols that they have to follow. If they can, touch search inside your jacket pocket, your outer jacket pocket. If they want to become more intrusive in their searching, they have to take you somewhere private. If they want to be more intrusive even further, like to have an intimate search of you, they have to take you somewhere private, but also someone of your sex must be a police officer of your sex must do that searching. So you can't have female police officer wanting to intimately search a young man, or vice versa, a male police officer wanting to search a young woman. It must be an officer of the same sex. And they must have a warrant to do these very intimate body searches. Okay. There's also, when you engage with the police, they have the video cameras, the body-worn cameras. And for most instances, if not all, those devices must be switched on. And so when you engage with the police, you can ask them, well, have you switched on the camera? Because you want a record of what happened to be kept. And if they do switch on the camera, you have access to that, and there are processes by which you can undertake to get access to the evidence. You can also take pictures with your camera, with your phones. Everybody has a phone, and well, it's how you exercise that right. So you shouldn't want to antagonize the situation, because your actions, depending upon what you do, may be construed as a danger to the police, and they may act in a certain way, and you want to avoid any trouble. So even though you're exercising your right to capture the incident on film, you have to do it in a way that doesn't stir the problems up, beyond what's necessary. And there are instances where you may see the police engaging with someone, and you may decide that you want to capture that with your phone as well. And it's important, again, how you conduct yourself then in those circumstances, because I'm sure you all remember the George Floyd incident, yeah? And were it not for the camera capturing, those events, similarly with Ahmaud Arbery, the guy who was convicted, he took pictures with his camera, and that was was the key to the prosecution. So you have rights, you have to know how to exercise them. And stop and search also could be done when you're driving a vehicle. Again, the police have to go through certain protocols. If they ask you to produce your documents, then you should have them readily available for them: the insurance, the MOT, the driving license. And again, you engage with the police in a way that doesn't antagonize the situation, because lots of things can happen, as you know, both here and in America. And it could be sort of it may end badly for you if you don't control yourself. So I'm sort of dealing with these issues in a very broad way, because they're very technical. They're very difficult to understand at first glance or first hearing. And so there are avenues by which, in a more measured way, you could be taught about the various aspects of the criminal justice system. Because stop and search, it involves more than 31 pieces of legislation and regulations and case law and guidance. And so it's a wide section, it's complex, and to understand, you can't get it at first grasp. You have to read it thoroughly, you have to understand it, you have to digest it, to be able to fully understand what you need to do, how you need to engage with the police. And so there are processes for that, and I'll tell you about that later on. There's also Section 60 of the Criminal Justice Act, the Criminal Justice and Public Order Act, 1994. And that allows the police in a particular geographical area to have powers that they would not ordinarily have. But those powers must be authorized by a very high person, usually an inspector. And it gives the police to do certain things because of particular things that are happening in that particular area at a particular time. So that's Section 60. They need to adhere to various rules. And it would be good for you to be aware of those rules so that, if they do things that, are out of the ordinary, then they should be able to explain And if you are aware as to what's required of them when they do exercise those powers, then you can ask them, are you doing your job properly? You know, are you following the rules? But that takes a lot of education. That takes a lot of confidence. But I think even as young people, if you are aware, you can engage with the police in a way that would ensure that they act properly. Because I had a few, well, let's say a year and a half ago. Question in line? Okay. Okay, the question online.
Oh, I don't want to. I wasn't too sure if I could interject at time. Okay, thank you so much for making the sacrifice to come down to conduct this program. Just two question I want to ask. In light of what you said about resisting arrest, is it down to police interpretation of the action? Uh, uh, and can it be abused? And secondly, in light of the recent occurrence with child Q, it appears to me that even if you may know the law, it seems that sometimes it does not de-escalate the situation. What are your thoughts on those two questions?
Okay, so in the first instance, the resisting arrest, that is on the basis of the assessment of the circumstances and the behavior by the police officer. And so he can say he can charge you, arrest you for, and then you're charged with resisting the officer, and he would present in his witness statement what he says the facts are. But you also have the right to say, to contradict what he's saying if the facts are, as he represents them to be, are incorrect. And I'll give you an example where the citizen challenged the police officer on three charges: assaulting the police officer on 2 occasions, 2 charges, and resisting arrest by 1. And this is a case I had to prosecute myself. And this young man came from Brighton. He was about to go to New York on university. He had no previous convictions. And it is said he was stopped on Embankment Bridge, I think or Westminster Bridge. And the police engaged with him, and they said he flared up and did all sorts of things. And he was arrested and he was charged 3 offenses. First, no previous convictions, about to go to New York and university. Do you know what impact that would have on his ability to go abroad to study if he were convicted? So on paper, the facts were solid. And so I took the case to court. And long story short, I lost the case. And having heard the evidence, particularly where there was some things happened, and the police officer's evidence was challenged. And certain things occurred in the course of the evidence that gave me pause for thought. And I was pleased that I lost the case, because there was a bus driver, one of these tour bus drivers, who saw what was happening. And he came to court and he gave the evidence and totally contradicted the police. So even though the police's assessment may be X, your assessment as the other party or as a witness may contradict what the police are saying in court. And the court, making a proper decision, assessing the facts, may decide, well, the police are wrong and that you are right, as it occurred, happened to me. And I was pleased because the guy was able to go off and do his studies. And sometimes you remember the circumstances and you shudder to think what could have happened had he been convicted. He may not have been able to travel. The other scenario painted, which is with child Q, and those sets of circumstances, as outlined in the media, it was like a catalog of errors. And from what I understand in the media, the child and her family has 2 sets of solicitors working for them. because they are pursuing different tracks against the police. And their job is made much easier because the school apologized. The police said that, it was regrettable what happened. And so there are a whole range of facts that can ground certain courses of action against the school, against the governors, against the principal, against the teachers, against the police, the individual officers, against the police service itself. And so the child's lawyers are dealing with that. And so there's always another course of action to be taken. I don't know if I answered both your questions.
Yeah, thank you. You have.
Okay, good, thank you.
It's two questions. So first of all, do you think justice is a divine precept that we have to carry out, or like that the government or whoever is in authority to put it across, they have to be honest between their conviction and obviously the laws and whatnot, and God, and to be honest towards God, because do you think it transcends beyond human beings, justice? And number two, you said all laws come from biblical law or come from the 10 Commandments?
Most of them.
Okay, well, most of them.
Yeah.
So then do you think the moral aspect of the law is something that holds the whole law together in terms of outcome of the law? So obviously somehow breaking the law, common law or whatever, yeah, at the bottom of it is infringing on human beings at some point of scale. So then that means that somehow you're grieved if someone stole from you, someone hurt you, someone violent. So do you think that then if moral aspect, if the law kind of ultimately goes to morality, then do you think, and morality can't come from anything other than God, do you think that this whole thing is like kind of this, you think it's like God gave us some there can't be justice without God, there can't be morality without God, there can't be law without God, so everything at some point came from God? That's my whole point.
Well, when I started the presentation, I said we talked about the 10 Commandments and how the biblical principles, which are morally based, some of the laws are grounded in the 10 Commandments, against stealing, against lying, against defaming someone's character, against damaging someone's property, all of that. They're all grounded in the 10 Commandments. And in terms of morality, I think that there are strains of that in various aspects of the law, in how we treat each other, and all the laws on human rights that are enforced, protect you against being violated in lots of ways, depending upon the morality of the circumstances. So yes, the law is based upon morality, based upon the biblical principles, but then there are extraneous circumstances that would, guide the lawmakers, the Parliament, the MPs, the House of Lords in the case of the UK, the Queen to sign off on the laws. There are various sets of circumstances that would guide the decision to implement laws. And so therefore, yes, the laws are morally based, but there are also other factors that would drive, laws being put into place. And that brings into another question, the role of the church. Because if the church thinks that certain laws are contradicting or offending the Bible, then there are avenues by which the church can agitate with the government before the laws are passed, or before the laws are, as they're being considered in Parliament. There are white papers that are produced, when laws are being, as the process to promulgate laws. So the church could be active or proactive in terms of monitoring the legislative agenda in Parliament, seeing the implications of the various provisions in various pieces of legislation, and then consulting with their congregation, and then taking action to protect moral aspect of the legislation. So there's something called PAL, I think, in the church structure. I don't know if I get it right, but yeah, there are avenues by which you could influence, or the citizens or the churches can influence the laws, and how they stand, how they reflect morality, how they affect fairness of treatment, against citizens of all sorts of persuasions. And there are groups that agitate, for certain laws to be passed. And the church sometimes, they may be against, what the churches may think, but because of those people being active and proactive, they get their agenda implemented in some of the laws. And so the churches can lobby to ensure that laws are in keeping with their moral standards. So I think there's a good role for the church in terms of protecting, what they believe in, and it's for the how should I say, and I say this very guardedly. It's how the leadership of the church engage with those various structures. Now there are times when the church must adhere to the law. The church can't contravene the law. Once the law is passed, the church is a corporate citizen, just as you, as an individual, a natural citizen. You need to adhere to the law, and so similarly, the church needs to do that as well. But once if the law is in the process of being considered before it's passed, then the church can, or the churches, not only the Seventh-day Adventist Church, but churches in general can lobby and make their voices heard and try to affect, the outcome of the law. And the church has a long history of doing that in terms of human rights. If you go back to the history of the church, you'll see both here and in America, the SDA church has had a very active life in terms of, trying to lobby to get laws changed so that it reflects the church's views. So it's up to the leadership of the church, actually, to pursue the moral agenda and influence the legislative agenda as well. I think that young girl had a question. Don't be afraid.
Basically, if you're driving home, you said if you're driving home, the police can pull you over to check, isn't it?
And depending on the circumstances,
Yeah.
yes.
Let's say you're driving home in the middle of the night, coming home from work, and the police were to stop me. And I said, well, look, I don't feel comfortable. Maybe I don't pull the glass down fully, but I state that I don't feel comfortable
Mhm.
because of what's going wrong. For
Mhm.
example, quite a few young ladies were killed by one of
Yeah.
these policemen.
Sarah
But I
Everett.
can go to the police station in the morning. If you'd like to take my number plate,
Yeah.
I'll go and report to my own police. Can you do something like that instead of getting out of your car and putting yourself in danger? Because there's a lot of people walking around sometimes dressed in police clothes
Yeah.
and they're not really police. You don't know for sure. Might
Mhm.
tell you badge number, pin, the whole lot.
You're right. So women in particular, because of what happened with that lady Sarah, they need to be very careful. So it's important to understand and to know why the officers want you to stop, and also what he wants from you. And then if you're afraid, again, it's all how you deal with the circumstances. You can tell the officer, and I've had a case where a young man actually was stopped by the police. The police were threatening to arrest him for assaulting the officer, and he knew the law to some degree. And that young man, I was very proud of him. That young man controlled the situation. And when the police wanted to escalate the issue beyond just his documents, he told the police officer, forget about that, man, forget about that. And the police officer did. So whereas he was threatening to arrest him for assaulting the officer, at the end of the day, it was resolved without any escalation of the charge. So, it depends upon the circumstances. It depends upon where, it depends upon how you engage with the police. the confidence that you have to engage with the police to tell them, well, let's say they want you to stop you in a dark place to produce your documents. You don't have all your documents. You have 7 days to produce the documents. So he can give you, what they call a producer, and you do so. Or you tell the officer, look, officer, I'm alone, I'm a woman, you know the climate that's going on. Can we not do this? Can you not follow me to, somewhere, more safe? Can I follow you to go to the station and we deal with it there? All sorts of things that you can do to engage with the police so that you de-escalate the situation and your fear, doesn't result in, action that would be harmful to yourself. Yeah. So it's the power of knowing, empowering you all to know the law and how you engage with the police, and so that you avoid escalating and that you protect yourself, and that you don't get ensnared with the criminal justice system. Because as I said before, the not having a criminal conviction is like gold. Understand? It's like gold. And for me, for you, it's to ensure that you are equipped to ensure that you don't get a criminal conviction. And we need to, as adults, as schools, as institutions, we know what's going on in the criminal justice system. So we have to form the different, or engage with the police. And there are various avenues by which you as a citizen could become engaged with the police to advocate that they take a different course of action. Let's take those cases, 550,000 or more stop and search, and only 14%, resulting in, further, further action by the police. So that's maybe about, let's say 50,000, let's say 500,000 cases where the police shouldn't have stopped the citizen. You can imagine if that were to occur, and the impact that would have on the relationship between, let's say, the Black community and the police, if there would be a lowering of the numbers of stop and search, the unnecessary stop and search. And there's an issue whereby police officers are stopping people based upon their, what they believe, and there was a case in Croydon recently where it was summer. It was getting to be summer. The weather was good. And this young Black guy had on a coat and a suit. And the police officer approached him and said, he's not wearing clothing that's fit for the weather. Is that a crime? And so I guess, the guy was upset, and, one thing led to another. And I don't know if he was arrested, but, he's complaining against what the police did. So the police need to be sensitive as well, and it's for us to engage with the police and lobby the police, and, lobby at every level, locally, the police locally, but also the Met Police, the Mayor of London, he has a program, as to monitoring the police as well. So the churches need to be engaged. There's a role for the church in protecting all of you, because you go to school. The circumstances that occurred with Child Q can happen to any one of you at any school in the country. And so we can't just sit and, let things happen. We have to protect our children, and protecting our children means being educated about the law and knowing the various levels of the possibilities that you can engage to ensure that your voice is heard, in all quarters of the establishment, straight across the criminal justice system. So what I'm encouraging people to do, and some people may say they don't want to do this because they don't want to engage with the feds, as they call them, okay? But our young people need to join the police, okay? Don't be afraid to, of all the bad stories you hear, you must, if you consider it, you must join the police. Become an officer, become a detective. You could also work as a dog handler, or how you monitor CCTV cameras, there are lots and lots of jobs, lots of careers in the police, and they actually pay for your university studies. Not many people know of this, but this is a way of engaging with the police, you know, and it's good to know what's happening inside rather than being outside and, you know, arguing about what should be done. Join them and try to make a change from within, you know, become a magistrate. This is something I'm encouraging all adults to do. There's quite a small number of Black magistrates in the country. There's a need for more Black representation in the magistracy. So join. You know, I have the details. If your parents, if your people in the church, if they want to know, contact me through Abigail. I'll give them the details so that they can try to become magistrates. You know. Become a lawyer, become a barrister, become a solicitor, you know, sister.
I read of two cases. These were Black judges. And when they entered the courtroom, they were asked, well, before they entered the courtroom, whatever that office is, they were asked if they are lawyers or otherwise, because they were Black. So my question really is, would they face discrimination too because of their skin color? Because I am thinking that this might be a hard job to get in.
It does, it happens. It happens at every strata of society, every strata of the criminal justice system. And the immediate past Lord Chancellor, Robert Buckland, you know, he recognizes based upon his practice, and I think he practiced as a lawyer, and he was saying that fundamental change is needed right across the criminal justice system. He says that every person working in the system need to, you know, examine their particular practice, how they engage with Black people, and need to make the change. When I read that, I was pleased, you know, because it meant, you know, there was an avenue to advocate for change. However, he was moved. He's no longer the Lord Chancellor, but he recognized the problem, as did MP Lammy, as Lord Macpherson, as Lord Scarman, for 40 years. You know, there are cases, there are reports, there are investigations, there are inquiries being done, hundreds of recommendations being made for change in the system. And the most recent one was MP Lammy. And in 2017, I think over two prime ministers' administration, he was asked to do this review. And he did the review, and I think he made 36 or so recommendations. And you know, this was 2017, he presented his report, I think. But this year, or last year, he was talking to, this year I think, he was talking to a group of legal aid practitioners. And he said he was very angry because one, he recognizes that maybe some of his recommendations didn't go far enough, but importantly, they were not being implemented. And so this is something that, you know, because he's, you know, his recommendations are calling for fundamental change in the system. And the governments are just not implementing, you know, what's required. So we, as a community, we are being impacted adversely by the non-implementation of these recommendations. So we need to advocate for change. We need to get involved at every level. Yep.
Okay, so it's a bit different question. So, you know, when the police is being sworn into office,
Yeah.
this I had that they actually call peace officers, not even police officers. So they call peace officers in the swearing-in ceremony. And on top of upholding the common law, they meant to uphold the Protestant movement in a coronation. Whoa.
Can you repeat? They are supposed to
Right,
oppose?
I'm not fully just tell me if it's true or not, right?
Yeah.
So apparently, okay, I'm not, you know, okay, you see when the queen was being sworn in at the coronation, right?
That's a long time ago.
Okay, well, what in the coronation requirements? So they say obviously it's not only she's sworn herself to uphold the common law and the Protestant movement,
Mm.
and as well, the police is told that they call peace officers, and they are required to uphold what the Queen is upholding, which is common law, and obviously commercial law at some point in time, but Protestant movement and peace or something. Is that true? So
Well, I've never been to a swearing in by the police, but the police they take an oath to protect and serve the citizens. And so therefore that should be the guide, because there's something about policing by consent. Police act based upon the consent of the community. And the police are servants of the community. So therefore they are accountable to us, or as to yourselves as citizens of this country. And so therefore you should exercise your rights to monitor the police. You know, there are various avenues by which you can do that. Some of them are working, some of them are not. But, you know, given the gravity of the impact of non-implementation, you know, of recommendations to, you know, to advocate for, to implement change, you know, bad behavior by the police, you know, we need to become more vocal in our interaction with the police to say that change is required. And this has to be on a sustained basis. It cannot be on the basis of there's an issue, it's topical, you agitate for a few days and then it goes quiet again. And when it happens again, you flare up again. But it has to be on a sustained basis. And I think that the police, if the police are monitored constantly and we report on, you know, what we see, I think that change will come. And also with the advent of the change in commissioner of police, you know, the Dame Dick, she resigned recently. I think that gives a chance for us, the Black community, to engage with the police. It's almost like a movement that's ripe for change, you know, for advocating what you want with the new commissioner of police when he or she comes in, and try to recalibrate, you know, the nature of the relationship between the police and the Black community, and also the white community as well. But we have to engage based upon empirical, factual information, accurate data, and the data is there from the Home Office, from a whole slew of avenues. You can get the data to engage with the police in a way that you can tell them they're not doing their job. And so it's for us to spend the time, expend the energy to learn as to what's not being done, and then say you want to participate and you want to engage for advocating for change.
There's two questions online, Brother Calvin. One is by Sister Nisha and one is by Sister Elizabeth Thompson. So to Sister Nisha, if you would unmute yourself.
Yes, hello. Thank you very much, Barrister Calvin. You sound like you're from my country, but I'll ask Abigail where you're from afterwards.
Trinidad and Tobago.
Oh, close enough. I'm from St. Vincent. Quickly, in terms of the law, I have basically witnessed basically domestic violence, and what escalated is that police got involved and stuff like that, and they went to court. Went to court, and four previous judges were on the ball with the facts and agreed. But in the final stages of the case, there was a judge that was brought on in the end who seemingly did not review the previous judges on the case and ruled in the favor of the perpetrator who domestically abused the victim, and she, a woman, unfortunately ruled in the favor of the abuser. And because of that, I know it's false because I witnessed it myself, the domestic violence. And what the mother, there was a mother involved, the mother and a young child, what can be done in that case, so to speak? I hope you understand my question.
Yes, I do.
Mhm.
I have a particular, how should I say, interest in domestic violence. I wrote a book, did sort of like theater productions to advocate against domestic violence. So that's so very dear to my heart. The circumstances aren't full. I don't know the exact circumstances of the case, but you say that it went through various stages of the system and eventually the perpetrator was found not guilty, if it were a criminal case. Again, I don't know the circumstances, so the caveat is I'm speaking from limited knowledge. But there are avenues by which the victim could appeal, and again, the caveat, I don't know the circumstances, but it's and how long ago the case was, but I'm sure the victim had representation, and that representation may have considered appealing. So I don't know if that's the case, but there are avenues to challenge what the decisions of the courts by way of appeal. And there's some other avenues as well, but I have to know the particular facts of the case before I venture to give any further advice. So in the limited information that you've given me, I'll say possibly the victim could have appealed the decision.
Okay, thank you. I'll contact Abigail to contact you after.
Pardon?
I say I may contact Abigail to contact you after for another
Okay,
something that
fine.
you said previously. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
That's
Thank
fine.
you.
Thank you.
Sister Elizabeth, if you would like to.
Yeah,
say something.
the reason why it's unmuted. The reason why what I'm asking, because you're encouraging our young people to join the force or to join whatever, but some of our young people have done law, studied law, and then when they finish, they cannot get jobs. And on top of that, I want to ask another question too. You said there are some movements that we can call aggression. What sort of thing do you call aggression when it comes to the police?
Okay. First thing about the jobs in the police.
No.
I know for a fact now that the police are looking for young people from the Black community to join. And as a matter of fact, I am aware of a group of people, women, who went to Scotland Yard maybe about a month ago. And based upon that visit and engagement with the officers, one woman is going to train the police about dealing with mental health issues. And another young woman is going to try to become a detective based upon the one visit to New Scotland Yard. So there are avenues, and I know there's an initiative by the Mayor of London to strengthen the numbers of BAME or Black community officers in the police service, the Met Police Service, and I know that for a fact. And so there are avenues, I would say. I mean, I know people have it's like anathema to join the police because of the treatment that have been meted out to us over the years. But there are Black police officers serving. Some of them, their experiences are good, some not so good. But I think that shouldn't deter you that if you want to pursue a career in the police service, that, the avenues are there. So I think that, they should be taken up, despite the reservations that most of the Black community may have in terms of engaging with the police.
Well, I was thinking when you said, I was saying that they study law and they cannot get jobs after.
Okay, well, I mean, if they want, I mean, it depends upon what their career aspirations are. If they want to become a solicitor, if they want to become a barrister, things are hard to get to pupillage and to get articles, to get, into firms to do, to work as a solicitor or or trained to be a barrister. Things are very hard. There are barristers now who are leaving the bar and setting up as, what do you call them? Non-practicing barristers. Not only low-level, barristers, but also QCs. They're leaving the bar because it's too expensive and because the cases just aren't there. And they're setting up on their own, limiting the type of work that they can do, but nevertheless changing a career course. So the person who has a law degree and can't get a job, I think that they should explore what is possible in the police service or in the probation service or in the, throughout the criminal justice system. There are lots of avenues open. And so rather than give up because you can't get a job immediately after school, I think you should try to explore as wide a range of possible options to get yourself gainfully employed. And now it may be that, you say, okay, they've done their studies, they've paid a lot of money, they've invested lots of time, to study. And so they want a job at the same level as being a lawyer or as their law degree. But I think they should, if the economy is such that they have to set their sights lower than what they actually want, then I think it's something that they should do. But there are also other careers that you can do as a lawyer, as a person with a law degree. And based upon my experience in anti-money laundering, combating the financing of terrorism, drug trafficking across the world globally for the past 20 years or so, there are lots of avenues for lawyers to become involved in that sector, to become compliance officers at the National Crime Agency, at the Foreign Office. There are lots of avenues for you to pursue careers in other areas other than, let's say, a solicitor, being a solicitor or a barrister. So I would advise young people to, having gone through, doing their studies, don't limit yourself to the UK, to London, to the UK, because there's a wide range of career options all across the world. And in the field that I operated in for the past 20 years, there's a limited amount of experts who are dealing with, creating the standards to protect the international financial system from money launderers and people who finance terrorism and people who commit terrorism. And so I know that there are avenues open for that. And if you know of any of these young people who have degrees and can't find jobs, through Abigail, let them contact me and we can talk. I can be like their career counselor.
And one more thing as well, just to add what Brother Calvin said, I do have a lawyer friend who's in Birmingham, who they've, I think the word you use is pupillage.
Pro bono work?
No, basically they've created a page where people who have come out of law school and can't find jobs, you can approach them just like they can approach you,
Okay, well,
and they will be able to point you in the right direction and even set you up to work as a volunteer until you get into what you actually want. So there are people out there who are actually there to help the newcomers, as you put it, newcomers. Is it pupillage it's called?
Yeah, pupillage for barristers.
Yes,
Training to
well,
become
I
a
know
barrister.
she's got a group based on that because I've seen it on Facebook. So there are people out there like yourself and her, for
articles.
example.
Yeah.
So yes, just need to ask.
Yeah, that's true. And the issue of discrimination, as Sister Ruth was asking.
Well, where is the question? My other question was that
sorry.
motion you talk about, what movements? That movement you talk about, aggression. What sort of things do you put under aggression?
Oh, you mean like resisting the police officer?
Yeah, well, when they say you're being aggressive, yeah.
I didn't use the word aggressive. I think I said resisting.
Assault.
Yeah,
So they use
resisting.
the word
Yeah.
assault. Assault.
Yeah, okay. So, well, it could be all sorts of things. You could be, let's say both, and this is just an example, and I'm taking this from my previous cases. Let's say two friends are walking down the street, and the police decides where he wants to speak to one of them, and he's talking and asking questions based upon his suspicions. And then you're standing there, you want to go wherever you wanted to go, and you decided to interfere. You wouldn't allow the police officer to do his job. You're pulling at your friend to say, come on, let's go, let's go. So this is impeding the officer from doing his work. And so therefore, that can escalate into the police, pulling back your friend, and then you deciding whether you want to, there's a tug and war between you, your friend, and the police. And the police can arrest you for obstructing an officer in the execution of his duty. And if that were to become physical, like you touching the police officer in that exchange, and let's say, if, for whatever reason, the police officer gets injured, that could be an assault, and if your friend decides to follow you and want to run away from the police, he can be done for resisting arrest. And for lots of other, depending upon where the circumstances occurred, some public order offenses. So again, it's important to be aware so that you are empowered to know what not to do, as well as what to do when you engage with the police. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Did I finish the story about the guy? Oh, yes, I did. The guy who I lost the cases because of the evidence given by someone else. And there's sometimes for yourselves, you may be seeing something happening, and police is interfering or interviewing someone, and you're concerned with the way it's being done. Again, you have to stand away from the incident, the events, but you could capture those in those circumstances on your phone. You can make a note if you don't have your phone. You can try to see the police officer, the badge number of the police. After the event, if the guy is let off, then you can speak to him based upon what you see, because he may have a course of action to pursue, and you can help him in that regard. But again, it has to be in a way that you maintain your distance from the incident, so that you don't become embroiled with the police and subject to any untoward action by the police. So it all depends.
I'm sorry.
It all depends upon how you engage, with what you see. The police is there.
Sorry, sir. That case that you said you lost, you were representing the police side, right?
Yes, as a prosecutor. Yes.
Right. That's what it. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. But and tell you what, I mean, the benefits of being inside the system was, there were cases where, where the evidence isn't strong, I would discontinue those cases. There were, I had the opportunity to engage with young people, to see what they're doing, and to, engage them in another forum other than the courts, to say, this is what you should or should not do, to lead them away from getting involved in the criminal justice system. So it has its benefits being on the inside. And right now, I'm doing some work with the Ministry of Justice, and that will benefit all of us. So it's, there's not, we shouldn't continue with the attitude that, we can't engage with the police. We have to engage with the police, because if we are feeling the brunt of the experiences, and to be able to stop that, we have to engage. It's as simple as that. And if we don't talk, we don't get anywhere. You have to engage. You have to engage. There's a pastor in Croydon. I'm sure she won't mind me saying this, but she started up something called parental ambassadors. And that's like going to the schools when children have problems, when parents have problems, with the schools, going to the police, engaging with the police, talking to the police so that, they can be more sensitive when they engage with young people, on the street or in the classroom, if they were called to the classroom. So we can't do those things. We can't bring about the change if we stay quiet. We have to engage. And there's no, nothing ventured, nothing gained. So therefore, it doesn't take much to engage. There are lots and lots of avenues to engage with the system through the Mayor of London. If you want to know more about that, I can be contacted by Abigail. I'm prepared to engage with you to show you how you can make a contribution. And then it takes away the mystique of the police. Because when the parents and 2 young children went to Scotland Yard, it was it was something that they felt could never happen, them going to Scotland Yard. So it took away the mystery and the mystique of engaging or going to somewhere that you've never been and talking to officers at that very high level. And that gives you confidence, because once you do it, it does something to your body, and then you want to do it again. And the more success you have about engaging, the more confident you become, and it's all good for you, good for your family, good for our community, and good for society as a whole. Because if we could take away all these problems that are being had between us and the police, then everybody would be operating at a better level, less stress, less bother. Everybody would be able to devote their time to more productive activity rather than having to go through the court system and all of that. So there's a need for change, and change can only come if we talk. And so for my goal is to empower you as young people to be able to talk at no matter what level, and to do so confidently. But you can only do so if you have the knowledge. Knowledge gives you power to do lots of things, And I have a project. Abigail will have some more information about it. But if you want to engage as young people in that project, you will learn a lot. It's necessary at this time.
May I interject here? I was going to come up after you finish and tell them, kind of list the things you have on the project
Okay.
that's offered to them. While you're there, seeing that you have it all in your mind, you know all about it, we'll appreciate it very much, because most of the people are online. There are about 38 people online that I'd like to know about it, considering what we have in here, so that I could then go back and reinforce what you've said.
Okay. So it's called the Empowerment Project. And it's accessible online. It's http://coderedempowerment.com. That's coderedempowerment.com. And we have courses there on first nurturing young people for success. And we have a variety of activities to strengthen their confidence, because to move forward, you have to feel good about yourself. And so that's what we want to do, strengthen young people to be confident in themselves. And then also prepare them for the world of work, but more so preparing them for the criminal justice system. We have a 5-day course that takes you throughout the system. You go everywhere, the courts, the police, the prisons. You talk to ex-offenders, you talk to police officers, you talk to judges, magistrates. And then the centerpiece of that 5-day experience is a mock trial where the young people undertake all the roles of the court system. And I did it as a pilot in North London some years ago. And on the same set of facts, which were adjusted from what was in the courtroom, the young people were harder on themselves as magistrates than the actual magistrates in the court. So that was a very good experience for me and for them, for their teachers. They were very appreciative of the effort. So now it's available to young people, all across the country, all across London. And so through Abigail, we can do that. You can learn more or contact me. There's also a course for parents to let them know what the courts can do if their children as young as 10 were to come to before the courts, and what orders could be imposed upon the parents because of their children's behavior. And, it's give young people the ability to make videos on the criminal justice system, to train them to be reporters on the system as community reporters, because I think the police need to be monitored. And we have within the program a project to monitor, to build an IT architecture to monitor the police, stop and search events, and all sorts of things, so that the eyes of the community are constantly on the police, and we can engage them more effectively, so that we can show them where they're going wrong and advocate for change. So there are lots of areas that we have in the course, and apart from those things, and call me. The number is there on the website. The details on the website as well, as to the nature of the courses. And so, yes.
And could you add the date for the camp as well? And
Oh, yes. We have an Easter camp at 5 venues in South London, Croydon, New Addington, Upper Norwood area. We have a whole range of nice activities. They're also free for students between 8 and 17. It involves kayaking, sailing, debating with some prizes, gaming, day at game arcade.
exercise,
Boxercise, yes.
horse
also
riding.
Horse riding, although right now the riding schools are giving some, they're very occupied for Easter. So that may have to wait until the summer. But we have things like debating. I said that before, yes. We have painting on canvas, because what we intend to do, we were, for the summer, we had a camp, some of the students painted on these canvases. We're going to paint again for Easter. We're going to paint again for summer. And for summer, we're going to have a big exhibition. They're going to do arts and crafts. And the things that they produce will be exhibited at the exhibition. They also have sculpting with wood. And those things that are produced would also be exhibited. And we also want to have a small business fair in the summer. And there are 2 young people, one 13 and one 8. They're very business minded. So they're leading this project to have this small business fair for the summer. So lots of activities. So if you're interested, register, simple email to my email address or via Abigail, and we can talk about it.
And it's for free, just so you know.
Yeah,
And we have some very artistic youth I've noticed in this church.
Yeah.
So I would encourage you to go to this, either the debate
Yeah.
or the painting, and we're sure to win something.
Yeah, and also, we're talking, there are people who will talk about music, fashion, creativity, radio productions. They'll come in and talk to you, and may even take you down to one of the radio stations. So there are lots and lots of activities. They're not yet up on the website, but I can give Abigail, a copy of the schedule of activities, and she can share that with you so that it can spark your interest. And we'd love to welcome you in South London.
And the dates, if you just
And the
repeat
dates would be between the 11th and the 22nd of April. One of the venues, I shouldn't say this just yet, but one of the best news is a church, Seventh-day Adventist church in West London. Oh, no, sorry, in West Croydon. And certain things are being done at the minute, and once we get that approved, then we'll be able to welcome you there. It's all for free. You get free food, free activities. So come and join us. Any further question on the criminal justice system?
Yes, please. Can I ask your experience with boys who prefer to do the time than snitch? And what advice would you give to such young people? Thank you.
That's a tough question. You know, you prefer to do the time than snitch. And I don't know the facts. I'm extrapolating. So it means possibly that you are protecting someone who actually did the crime. And from my experience, if the tables were turned, the person would look after their own interests rather than protecting yourself. They may not return the favor. So let's say the incident that you are required to snitch on, and you don't decide to snitch, and you decide to do the time, it could be a very serious offense. And it could involve maybe sentencing for maybe 20 years. And would you, as a young person, and there are lots of young people, teenagers, who are engaging in criminal activity, who are killing each other with knives, harming each other with knives. And their entire career, their youth is taken away because of the length of the sentencing. So for me, I would tell that person, consider carefully before you do go down that road, because you may lose more than the person that you're trying to protect. And I know that there are lots of pressures on young people at this time, from drug lords and all sorts of things. But we have to engage with our young people to strengthen them to be able to resist, what they're being preyed upon to do by criminals. And I know young people, they don't work. Some of them, they aren't employed, and they want money to do things. And you have to think about the long-term consequences of what you're doing. The issue of knife crime is very worrying. You see the knives that young people carry. You want to know, where are they hiding these knives? How could they bring these knives to school? Are they hiding them, secreting them near the school so that they can have easy access to them after school? So that when they get on the bus, you see them fighting each other with these knives. So all these things we need to look at and to try to get to the root of them. I know it's difficult for young people to want to speak to people, to trust more older person than themselves. But we have to get to the root of this, because it's a whole generation of young people being lost. And sometimes you have the difficult situation of having a parent accompany a child and his friends to harm and eventually kill someone else. And that parent is arrested. The child is arrested, his friends are arrested, they're taken through the system, and they're placed in prison. What would happen to the children, the sisters and the siblings of that boy, the children of the mom, whilst the mom is in jail doing time? So another set of family members are taken into care, potentially. I'm not sure if that's the case, but potentially that can occur. So we have to think about the impact of what we do, as parents. We have to monitor our children. We have to engage them. We can't leave them to their own devices, because they do things that, jeopardize their future. Knife crime is a big thing right now. In London, 31 young people were killed last year. 31. And there was a harrowing case of one young boy being killed in Addiscombe Park, I think it is. And it is said that someone in the neighborhood saw what happened. And apparently the killers circled the park to make sure that the boy was dead. What's that about? And another incident occurred where a young boy died in his mom's arms after having been stabbed. Could you imagine the trauma for that? And for those 31 young people who were killed, you have their families, their mom, their dad, their siblings being affected. And then you have, on the other side, the perpetrators, their moms, their dads, their families being affected. So all in all, for the killing of 31 young people, you may have maybe 164, 150 or more families or people affected by what was done, one young person. So this has to stop. And how are we going to do that? We need to pay more attention. Because, what's happening at school, we need to be more involved. Some young people are being excluded from school for a year. I heard of cases last week. I heard of cases of like 1 year, one young boy was excluded, and then another was excluded for the entire secondary years. How could that be? How could that be? So we have to become more involved. Maybe some of you will have the pastor come up here and speak to some of your parents to become parents ambassadors. So you could become more involved in the school. You can become more involved with engaging with the police, because we have to protect our young people. Because if we don't, then another generation of young people will be lost. And you don't only have the criminal issues, you have the mental health and well-being issues as well to consider. And there are cutbacks in resources constantly, So that's why I think that there is a bigger role for the churches, in doing a lot of social work in the community with our young people, in the congregation. We have to protect our young people, We can't leave them to their own devices. We have to make sure they realize their full potential, and you have to engage. And I know some of them could be difficult, because I was difficult as well when I was a youngster, but we have to look past all of that. We have to save our young people. Yeah. So if there aren't any further questions, I'm prepared to answer them. Pardon? But if not, then thank you for listening, both here and online. And I'm open to engaging with you all, post, today, anytime in the future. Because, I want the best for you all, as I've had for myself. And I came from a very disadvantaged background, but I accomplished a lot. So what I accomplished, I want you all to accomplish, you young people.
Why did you decide to become a barrister? Do you mind saying? Why did you choose, to go to that level?
Well,
if you don't mind.
This happened just by chance, because my mom wanted someone to be a lawyer in the family, and I thought it would have been my big sister. But as God would have it, and this is because I had no intentions of going to university. All I wanted to do as a young person was to get a job and help my mom, because my father left, when I was 9. But when I was 9, I vocalized something. I said I wanted to be a diplomat, and that's my first career choice, not being a lawyer. And for 20 years, I lived my dream. And so part of that journey to become a diplomat meant studying law. And that happened in a very, very short space of time as well. And I put it all down to God. So yes, I became a barrister, and then I became a prosecutor, and then went on to become a diplomat for 20 years. I represented 31 countries in the Caribbean, Central and South America. And I traveled the world. And I lived my dream. So my advice to, my story is for young people to dream big, because dreams do happen. And I think it's almost as though when you have these things in your heart that you can't explain, it's It's almost like God speaking to you as to what he wants you to do. And he will put in place all the things that you need to accomplish what he wants you to do. And if I were to tell you the details of my story, they're unbelievable. And there are times when I'm sitting where I'm sitting or have been sitting, and I would laugh to myself, thinking about where I came from as a young person. I'm being wild, you know. My mom used to call me a wild person at one stage of my my teenage life. But then suddenly it all changed. And everything that I did in the past just went away. And I focused on my work. And for me, that was God's grace. Because listen, I'm telling you, the things that I accomplished, I couldn't sit, you know, in my desk or on my bed or, you know, and conjure up a scheme to do the things I did. Impossible. So I think it was all God's grace. And for me, it's like trying to encourage you to dream big and to experience the things that I experienced.
So
Coming here
did you
to
grow up
London.
here? Did you grow up in the UK? Did you grow up in the UK?
No, I grew up in Trinidad and Tobago. I came here to study, and I did my studies, and I should have gone back to Trinidad. And by fate, as fate would have it, as God would have it, you know, things happened, and I stayed, and I got a job, and did all the things that I did, you know, and everything that I did, as from my studies and primary, secondary school, learning to speak French, all the things, the subjects that I did, the work that I did as a barrister, or training to be a barrister, the subjects I did during my master's degree, the work I did as a diplomat, every single thing that I did throughout my life prepared me for what I did then and what I'm doing right now. So I couldn't work it out for myself. So I give that all to God, you know. And for me, it's just to share that with young people so that they can do what I did. Because if someone like myself could have done that or could do this right now, as I'm doing now, and the background that I came from, a single parent family, you know, dad leaving when I was 9, and my mom and my big brother and my big sister, who I call my mom and dad, you know, because they sacrificed a lot for us to get what we, you know, our education. It's just unbelievable. So I want that to be the experience of all the
Thank
young
you very
people.
much for sharing. Thank you so much for sharing. And I
Thank you.
really hope our young people are listening to know that they can do anything that they want to do. And you've
Exactly.
given God the praise and the glory. Amen. And I wish you all the success. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you.
Brother Calvin, Barrister Calvin, our elder, our big brother, we'd like to say thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, your experience, your skills. And to know about the law is very important because it could transform your mind. And when it transforms your mind, it means then your life will be transformed. If you are aware or you know what the law is, you know what your rights is, you know what you ought to be doing, then hopefully you will put that into practice, and in your mind being transformed, your life will be transformed. And I'd say, I don't remember exactly where the text is taken from, but it says Daniel and the 3 Hebrew boys, and even Joseph, purpose in their minds that they will not sin against God. I think that's what we need as young people. Our young people need to have a purpose. If you have a purpose, if you decide you want to be a lawyer, it doesn't matter who tells you that you can't do it. If that purpose is stuck in your mind, that is what will be established and manifested in your life. As long as you stick to the path, not just with your studies, but with God as your focus as well, you will get there. So, Brother Calvin, we appreciate it very much that you showed to us the law and us, how it affects us, how we can use it to make our lives better, how we can use it to navigate this world and the system in an effective way, a way that we don't escalate things, but more or less be able to de-escalate things. So we are very, very grateful. So our online, if no one has any more questions, no one in the audience has any questions, we will just sing a song to end with, and then we
Abigail,
will,
Abigail, sorry, can I say one thing?
yes, you may.
As you just, that last statement that you made about the purpose, I would encourage everyone listening now to tune in from 10 to 11 tomorrow, where that very powerful 1 hour presentation is going to be made about the purpose, your purpose as human beings. It says woman, but it's for all. So I've sent you the flyer, Abigail, if you can put it on the site so that everybody can log in from 10 to 11 tomorrow morning, just an hour. Very, very powerful presentation that ties right into this. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I agree with Brother Calvin. If we want to see changes made as Christians, we have to definitely get into the careers like lawyers and, police. For example, in Walthamstow, I remember going to the Walthamstow market, and they were advertising there for police. They will take anyone, even if you don't have a first degree, they will help you to get a first degree to get you to. So if you want to be the change, you want to be the person who knows the 10 Commandments and the law of the Bible and bring it into your work, then we are the people that are Christians that need to join these organizations. We can't avoid them and then want changes to be made. We have to become up, as the Bible said, in the world, but not a part of the world. Therefore, if we're in the world, we have to do the job so that we can then reach the people that are there. So thank you so much. And we appreciate your time that you took to come here, and we would love to have you again. And yes, I will take those details from Brother Calvin. And if you would like to go to the Easter camp, or if you would like to join the debating, or if you would like to do the sketch and all these other things that are the program that he has there for you, I can send you the email, and I have it. So just reach out to me and I will get it for you, because it is a great opportunity. And I don't think that we should pass up on this opportunity, because as they said, as the saying goes, opportunity knocks once and sometimes it's never regained. So you have to grasp it when it comes your way, okay? So thanks once again, Brother Calvin, and thanks everyone for being here present. And thanks, we'd like to say thank you also to our online viewers for taking the time out to come and join us today. And remember, the law and you, education is to prevent and divert you from the criminal justice. And we shall sing. Anybody has a favorite song?